So normally I wouldn't upload two videos in the same night, but I did do this one and I just had to show it. Kind of the backseat, doing other games, just letting you know I'm doing a little series called basically, just delving into spellbooks, trying to figure out, the best way to play them. And I have always strongly believed, ever since I read The Effect of Reaper of Prophecy, that it is the best option to play. In this next video, you're going to see the combo that I utilize, which not only allows me to resolve the effect of Reaper, well, not Reaper, but Reaper and Fool in the same turn. I start out with what's not ideally a decent hand. I'm going up against Lightsworn. I play a little risky, but it pays out in the end. And, hopefully this will give you some perspective as to other ways to play the deck other than just spam High Priestess, I guess, which tends to be the way that everybody wants to play this deck because High Priestess is a dad that can swing, which is great, but it's not the same as this. So without any more waiting. So we'll get started. It's basically my prophecy deck versus a Lightsworn variant. So with the new tuners. So let's get started. All right. So I'm going to show the opening hands like I tried to do. My opponent opens with Beckoning Light, Lumina, Raikou, JD, and Necro. Basically, the most ideal hand you can open with in well, not most ideal, but definitely a very good hand in most perspective for Lightsworn players. However, I have Spellbook of Fate, World of Prophecy, Reasoning, Spellbook of Power, and Royal Decree all in my hand. Now, Royal Decree is good because he does have Beckoning Light, but it's not going to play a major part until mid-game, so there's no real point. So let's see. I open up with an Effect Veiler, and I activate Reasoning. He picks 6, and I hit Spellbook Magician. I activate the power just to put a second spellbook in the grave because I milled the spellbook of Fate in the process of reasoning, so I have 2. So with my other Fate, I'll be able to resolve my flip combo to put it back face down, attempt to reuse the effects, and hopefully get a plus out of it. And I set Decree, which is always safe, especially if I'm going up, because at this point I don't know if it's a Blackwing player or anything else, but setting Decree turn 1 makes them MST it, or it can lock out an entire Chainburn player turn 1. It's a very effective move, but I have a face-up Magician, and I did not plus off my power, so I'm already in a semi-behind position, aside from my Decree. My Fate will protect me if he sets a bunch of back row, but my Decree fixes that, so I'm pretty much banking on my combo here. So he proceeds, draws Minerva, sets a Raikou, and ends his turn. I activate Fate to flip. I draw into Reaper. Now I flip up Magician to get my Spellbook of Secrets, activate Secrets to get another Magician, search my master, and sit on Gotchi, because Gotchi is, Gotchi's going to be helpful. He draws a Dark Hole and tries to blow up. Now this is the part where I play a bit risky. Now I know how crucial the Lightsworn mill is. So when I saw Raikou, I realized, he's playing Lightsworn, or he's playing some variant where he needs stuff in the graveyard. So I chain my Veiler, even though he's just going to pop a Decree that's dead at the moment. But I want to protect my back row and make him think it's something more important. So I chain the Veiler just to make it where he doesn't plus off his mill, and he doesn't, resolve the effect to blow up my Decree in case he sets. And lastly, it puts a spellcaster in the graveyard, which is important, and you'll see that in a minute. So, let's continue. He opts to just set his Necrogarden and pass his turn. I draw into Fool, activate Fool's effect to mill my Luna. Now, a lot of people wonder, why I would play Heliosphere and Luna. Fool is a free dump, and unless you have, a good hand, you really can't resolve the effect of Fool to the best extent, if you get what I mean. Like, he doesn't always put the best card in the graveyard. You don't want to mill a Secrets or a Wisdom or one of those cards that you can use all the time. But having access to Library of Crescent and Heliosphere gives you 2 additional targets that you can just dump. And if you draw them at the right time, they can be positive cards, but they're not necessary, to the actual play style of Prophecy, which is protection, removal, and power overall in searching. Library of Crescent does it a little bit, and Heliosphere is a very risky card, but it can pay off. Point is that they basically become my go-to dumps for Fool whenever I draw him. Now I have milled with him to put a card in the graveyard, and if you look now, I have a reasoning, or I have a Spellbook of Fate, Secrets, and a Crescent in my hand, and I realize that I can play a pretty impressive turn now. I'll punch over his Raikou. I risked it, even though he might have had Honest, but I doubted that he would use Honest to deal 200 damage just to kill a fool. So I punched. Again, I played a little risky, but continuing with the move. I go into my main phase. I go into my end phase and just pass. He just ends with his Necrogardnet because he figures that he'll be safe, provided that I punch into his Necrogardnet because he can just banish it and save himself, I'm assuming. But he drew Gareth, and he's drawn Minerva, which I know is a bad draw. He doesn't have enough lights in grave to save him right now, so he didn't even bother setting Beckoning Light. And he knows that he won't be able to clear my board, and he'll only put a Necrogardnet in graveyard if he activates Darkhold. He doesn't have enough targets for JD, and his Lumina, he's probably fearful that I have another Veiler, which is why he hasn't summoned it. Plus, the only other target that he could have probably done was Gareth, which wouldn't have helped him tremendously. So, he just passed, and I activated Fool to mill my Heliosphere like I told you I would. So now I have 4 targets engraved for my Reaper effect. But I realize that I can get it a little quicker now that I have the Spellbook of Secrets. So I go ahead and move on, activate Secrets to get Eternity, use Eternity to get Power, use Master, Revealing Power to get my Fate back with my Eternity effect, and then I resolve Reaper. Now Reaper has many targets, any level 5 or higher dark spellcaster, which lets me get Delg. Now Delg is the only Monarch that I think nobody gives a crap about. Even Karaz saw play for a little while, but Delg prohibits himself from being able to attack the turn that he's summoned in any way. But if he's special or normal summoned or tribute summoned, you get to banish up to 2 cards from the opponent's graveyard, which I'm realizing against Lightsworn is fantastic, and I get to mill the same number of cards that I banish from the graveyard. So by banishing his Raikou, or by resolving Reaper fully, I not only got to search my life, but I got to summon Reaper with a 600 point attack bonus, and my Gachi is giving me 400 more, and then I get to resolve Delg, which lets me banish this and mill one other card, which turns out to be his Foolish Burial. I make Norito. Now this is really where this deck shines, is that Norito is Shi-In. He's a Shi-In once a turn for up to 2 materials. And since it requires 2 level 6 spellcasters, if you resolve Reaper in the middle of your turn, you can make Norito and have a Shi-In at that point, where now my opponent's Darkhold is dead and his Beckoning Light's dead. In case he tries to use both in the same turn, I have my Decree as a backup. And at this point I say, you know what, I'm going to resolve the effect of Fool 2. I use Spellbook of Life to banish my Effect Veiler to bring back my Fool, and then utilize Fool to mill the Wisdom, putting Fate in the graveyard to banish his Necrogardner, which was a really good play, and then I resolve Fool to summon Wheel. Now Wheel is the card that nobody seems to know about, but this is probably the first time I successfully summoned him in a duel in a good way. It was actually thinking of opting out of him for a while. But Wheel lets you pick as many spellbooks that are banished as you choose, put them back in the deck, and then shuffle them back in the deck, and then put the rest in the graveyard. So he totally resets the graveyard for any fates. He can put back eternities. He can put back anything. So that makes him phenomenal. Very late game. But at this point, I have 2 of my best boss monsters on the board. Wheel has no further protection aside from my Norito, who is going to save him from a spell or trap card. So, I set up my old graveyard again, and this is at the point after Wheel resolves. I have Heliosphere, Spellbook of Life, Fate, Wisdom, Eternity, Secrets, and Crescent, and another Fate in the graveyard. So I have all of that set up for the grave in case I manage to detach with Norito to get the Reaper in the graveyard and then find a way to summon him back by a world or some other nonsense. But he summons Raiden just to have an attempt at getting something going to summon that JD and bomb the board, because he can't use the Dark Hole. And so he tries the Desperation Mill, which putting that Raikou out of play really hurt him. And so he goes ahead and activates Raiden to mill his cards. He mills Recharge and Aaron and ends up having to scoop it up because he can't get anything going even at that point. No attack points on the board, and having Norito just, icing on the cake, being able to stop his spells and trap cards. He can't even put back cards with Beckoning Light because I have Decree set. I have a Gachi pumping my monsters. I have an invincible monster essentially. World's sitting dead in my hand, but point is you can see this deck can resolve, and once it goes off, if it goes off fast enough, the opponent is screwed. I just outsped Lightsworn just to put it in perspective for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Doom Valley Games, have a nice day.